Okay. Hi, I'm back. I hope this works. I don't know what happened. I was too real on stream and the internet died, I guess. No, I'm joking. But I saw the comments before I ended the stream. So just to catch up, this is part 2 of the April 4th, 2026 stream because the other one died from the internet, probably from the storm. And so what I was talking about before the stream died was how like people perceive you and how you're like how the impression we make is and what kind of impression translates to the person's level of wisdom or knowledge. So that's kind of where we're leaving off. And Akai Hane says, Raji and Kami-sama said no. Exactly. They were like, no, it's not true. Like, don't be cynical. No, I'm joking. I don't know. But it's true. Okay, so I remember the last comments, just to read them. Michael-san said, I think during the growing up part of life, something like 13 to 25-year-old, everyone is just a mess. And I agree. It's so messy. It's so messy. And the other comment was, I didn't get my stuff together till my mid-30s. And yes, it's so true. I think I'm going to be 33 next week. And I think I'm getting there, but it's still like there's still a lot to learn, you know. And Akai Hane says, yeah, that's definitely a defense mechanism. One of my favorite phrases is, inside every cynic is a disappointed idealist. And that's so true. Like, so like cynicism, right? Like being a cynical person or being a more aggressive person or a more like negative person, I guess you could say. That's like the first step, you know? So like we all begin, like generally speaking, people kind of begin from a place in their childhood with like innocence and like idealism and like hope and like, you know, you believe in Santa Claus or stuff like that. But then of course, like as you get older, even as a child, you start to see realities of life and you start to realize even as a child that especially if you've been through really difficult things or like abuse and other horrible things, you quickly realize that life is very difficult. So, you know, unfortunately, like some people have better childhoods where they can enjoy the innocence longer of a peaceful and, you know, comfortable kind of worldview. But unfortunately, not all children have that ability to have an innocent, longer childhood. And soon they realize how cruel and difficult this life can really be. And then that kind of brings us into the next stage where we kind of realize, like, you know, how we see that there is lots of suffering in this world and not everything can be peaceful or good. And there's a lot of pain and suffering that exists. And even if nothing really even directly happened to you, you'll see it in the world around you. You'll see it in the news. You'll see it in like stories that you're like, or things your parents or adults might go through, or you see it in like media, or even the most like common exposure is even just like the brutality of nature. Like nature is beautiful, but it can also be very brutal, and that can also be very like difficult on the psyche of a child as well. So, you know, you kind of get to that stage where the idealism and the hope in the world kind of dims down, and you kind of become a more like cynical person, more kind of like negative or pessimistic. And again, like I don't think there's anything necessarily like inherently wrong about that. I think it's like a natural reaction to what you experience or what you see and processing that reality. And it can be hard and it's difficult. And again, for me, being that kind of personality is related to my trauma, because that's the way I was able to process the difficult things that I had gone through, was to kind of like shut off emotionally and look at the world as like a tragic place and an unfortunate place. But what kind of got me out of that was going more into like a balance, right? So some of you guys might know this series, but it's one of my favorite novel series. It's like a series of unfortunate events where the whole premise is like these children going through horrible, tragic things. But it's kind of like in a way that shows that they come together more from the tragedy and they build resilience. And they come closer as the siblings come closer through these tragedies and through these things they have to overcome and through this like messed up world. It kind of gives a little bit of hope through the storyline, even though it's generally negative and like very like has that vibe. It's ultimately like about hope and like getting through these difficult things. And then that introduction kind of led me into like other stories where like it's like, yes, like there's like horrible, terrible, tragic things in the world out of our control, and they will happen, unfortunately, even to people who don't deserve it. But you're not like trapped in it forever. Like you can overcome obstacles and difficulties and build resilience and build a sense of hope. And these stories really touched me because, of course, I'd gone through so many painful things and like horrible things, and was traumatized so much. But these stories gave me hope that I didn't have to live in this kind of worldview forever. I could come out of it, and I could overcome my own internal obstacles and my own internal pain. And then I'm kind of processing this idea through these stories and these tales. And then I kind of met, I kind of like religion was there too, but I was also a little bit like cynical and like unsure and like I don't know if religion was really for me, and it was like a whole thing, right? But then that's when I met the Konko Faith around that time. So it was kind of like from ages like I want to say like I don't know, maybe like 11 to like 17, I guess, to 18. So like in those like 6 to 7 years, there was like a little bit of that like development over time through school and through so many other painful things. But through these stories and media, and I remember especially like in grade 11 and like when I was 17, like I was really reading a lot of stories that had to do with like overcoming obstacles and like having hope in the face of tragedy. And like, reading a lot of classic literature, all that stuff. So it really helped me through it. And when I met Konko Faith when I was 18, like riding on the coattails of these stories and mythologies and tales of overcoming tragedies and overcoming obstacles and building resilience from them, from the effort you put in to overcome them, not just from the bad things happening that make you stronger. I don't think it's that, because you can easily get drowned in the bad things you endure. They can become so overwhelming that you're drowning in them and you can't escape, or it's extremely difficult to overcome them. Like sometimes you need help, sometimes you need like support, and it's like complicated, right? But nonetheless, if you find the resilience and power to slowly work on overcoming them, the process in which you overcome these tragedies and these painful things do help you grow as a person and do help you evolve as a person. And that's kind of the journey I was going through. I still am kind of going through, honestly. But when I met the Konko Faith around this time as well, I think that's why the core message of the faith really resonated with me. Is that like, okage wa waga kokoro ni ari, which is like divine blessings begin in your own heart, which means essentially that like whether or not we can like really receive blessings and really understand blessings depends upon my own heart, my own actions, my own thoughts. And that's extremely difficult to reach because of everything I mentioned, like because life will come at you and it will make you go through many, many horrible things. But nonetheless, you have to find a way to overcome them. And I guess a little bit that's why I kind of connect to like Matarajin Sama too, is like kami-sama of obstacles, kami-sama of overcoming obstacles and difficulties, right? So, that really resonated with me, that like, part of this, like part of the Konko Faith is to put in the effort to not give in to despair and not give in to cynicism and not give in to negativity, but to overcome the feelings that come from, like, these feelings that naturally come from going through life, even if you've never been through severe trauma, even just like going through the struggles of life, and like accepting that this is life, but also kind of overcoming those feelings and growing towards a sense of like resilience and hope and looking forward to the future. There's a lot of teachings. Sorry, the storm is so hard now. There's a lot of teachings that say like look forward to the future, like pray to Kami-sama and look forward to the future. Well, the Japanese is different, but the meaning is similar, where like don't give in to despair, but have trust in Kami-sama. Have like trust in Kami-sama that you'll be able to overcome these difficulties and tragedies, especially together with Kami-sama, because you don't have to do it alone. If you're doing it together with Kami-sama, then you can absolutely even more stronger overcome the difficult things and the tragedies in life and the painful feelings. So that's like really important to me, to see that message in my life, especially because everything I've been through. And that's why I want to emulate the people I admire and I look up to are people who have gone through unimaginable, horrible things, but they are still able to retain their joy and their positivity and their peace, their internal peace and happiness and connection to the divine. Because to me, that's like incredible. That takes incredible amount of willpower and effort and wisdom. And, just it shows like someone is very like their soul is very evolved, to me, personally speaking. And that's why I really admire Konko Daijin-sama, because he had gone through extremely difficult things. He lost his children. And to me, like losing your child is one of the most painful things anyone can go through. I think it's just that is like an unimaginable level of pain for me. And it happened to him more than once. So like I can't even begin to fathom the level of pain and like difficulties and struggles that Konko Daijin-sama went through. And especially living in that era where like there wasn't like any like material comforts available, like even like modern medicine was not available. Like there was so many struggles, like spiritually, like materially, emotionally, and on top of that, going through grief of the loss of his children. And I can't even begin to fathom, because I've been through really bad things, but I have not lost a child like more than once, right? So like I can't even begin to fathom, especially like like especially for someone like him who was very like faithful and sincere, and he loved his children so deeply with his wife, the two of them together, and like having to see his wife go through grief too of the loss of their children. Like it was just a lot, on top of everything else, on top of like smallpox, cholera, food scarcity. Like there was just so much I can't even begin to imagine. But even through all that, like Konko Daiji-sama was so strong in his faith in Kami-sama. He was, as far as I know from like the teachings and everything, I didn't know him personally, unfortunately, but from what we know about him, as said in the Kyotan and other records, he was a peaceful person. He had a gentle face. He looked like he was always like at peace, and like he was able to give other people comfort and give them hope and give them happiness. And in spite of all that he went through, like he was able to become that person who can become Ikigami, even like have his kami nature shine through despite all of he went through. So to me, that's really inspiring, and I really, really look up to that. And I want to be like that too, because I think that is evidence of a very wise and emotionally and mentally and spiritually strong person. Strong as in the sense of like resilience, that they don't give up to work through their pain. They don't give in to despair. They keep trying. And that doesn't mean like he ignored his grief or he never got like upset or questioning Kami-sama. But like he went through these feelings and questions to Kami-sama, like why did they have to die, and like, you know, like and like the grief, but like he put in the work to process it and to understand it and to not give into just like the despair of what he went through. And no, it wasn't easy to go through that, but that's what makes it very precious and valuable to me, that in spite of all the pain, in spite of all the hardships, that that people like Konko Daiji-sama and others keep trying in spite of that. And to me, that's very powerful. Like that's something very like wise and powerful. And you know, I the storm is so heavy now, but yeah, I want to be like that, and I know I'm not there. Like realistically, I know that I'm not there because I go through things and I feel bad. I feel sad emotions. I feel difficult emotions. I feel like hegare, and it does get to me, and I'm not at a place where I can like from deep down like really still be at peace. Like I still have to overcome it and put effort to overcome it. But I want to be at a place where where I've been through it enough, where I understand that like even though these tragedies and difficulties happen, I can still like have the peace and keep a joyful spirit and keep hope and love and openness in spite of all of those things. And I don't think that's like unwise. I think it's opposite, you know. And I guess like going back to the original story, just to kind of go back full circle, is that I guess that's kind of what made me sad, is that I see people in the place where I was, and I want to connect to them, but they can't see or they can't connect to where I am. And it makes me sad because I feel like I'm a happier person. Not only like happy as in like happy, you know, like not like that, but I mean like I'm more content, or like more like, how to explain this? Like I like who I am more now than who I was before, when I was in that kind of deep dark pit of like sadness and despair. So that's why I feel, maybe I'm projecting and maybe that's not good, but I felt sad because I would want the person I saw myself in, I saw my past self in, to also reach a place where they could work on overcoming the more like overcoming the personality type you get from going through a lot of tragedies and difficult things, and like PTSD and like all that stuff, right? I shouldn't say it so lightly, like all that stuff, but you know, it just the whole, you know what I'm talking about, like mental illness, trauma, going through difficult things, pain, suffering, all of that, right? So, you know, it's hard to overcome, but I hope people will overcome it. And anyway, so also again, like about the impression and like my appearance and my personality, I had a time where I thought that maybe it would be better if I was like serious all the time. Like if I never made jokes, never if I never like showed I liked cute things, or I was like I never played video games, or I never watched anime, and I was just like a totally serious, like mature, like adult person, as in the sense of like my image of it. But looking back now, I realized that kind of idea was immature in and of itself, because to make an image of what I thought at the time was like more serious, you know, like a more serious person, you know, like never laughing, never smiling, being so realistic, to the point where it's like a little bit negative. I thought that would be someone more respectful. Like I'm a person worthy of respect more at the time. But now that I'm getting older, I realize I now at my age, which isn't that old, honestly, I still have a long way to go. But I'm pretty much like adult, right? But even now at my age, if I saw an adult or a peer who was like the person I imagined was a mature person as I did 10 years ago, I would see them as an emotionally troubled person who's going through a lot of things and they haven't had the time or space to go through the growth necessary to reach a place where what I consider is a really powerful and wise person who can, they have been through really painful and difficult things, but they have the wisdom and the strength to retain positive balance in their life. Because I know now that's much harder to do than remaining like serious and cynical, right? So my perception when I was younger was so much more narrow-minded and more emotionally immature than the knowledge I have gained over the years, and especially being in the Konko Faith, especially having experience with Shinto practices and understanding them more deeper. How I can understand now that perception was quite immature compared to my ideal, how I see a very mature and idyllic person that I want to emulate now when I'm like 32 going on 33. So yeah. Oh, Akayana says, I never met that sort of adult that's actually happy. Yes. Grown-ups have very little joy, I found. Yes, exactly. And with that, I have to run. Thank you for your answering your stories, Olivia Sensei. I'll be dropping you a DM later about finding a local Shinto priest. Oh yes. Thank you so much for coming and I look forward to it later. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye. But yeah, so I don't know. I guess like that's kind of where I'm at now. Maybe I'll change in the future. I don't know. Nothing stays the same, right? Maybe I'll full circle. Maybe I'll come back around. But as of right now, this is how I'm feeling about it and situations like this. And it's not like I look down on people. Again, like I don't look down on people who are in that space because I've been there myself. Just I don't feel personally like that's the goal. That's not like the person I want to like end up to be towards. Like I don't want to, like I feel like that is less, like not that they're lesser, but that keeping that mindset is not as is not as grown as I would want to reach because I've already reached that point. So I want to evolve past it. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. Alex, oh hi Alex. Alex says, I think I found a few adults who are joyful. They are rare. My father was one like that. Oh, I see. Yes, it's so hard to find like someone with that kind of like, they're joyful but they're wise because you know that they've been through things. And I feel like there's a difference between like someone who's like happy and like, you know what I mean, like a happy person, a peaceful person, a joyful person, from overcoming hardships and tragedies and difficulties versus someone who's kind of like lived in a bubble, someone who's like from their childhood to adulthood, they've kind of been in a safe like little bubble and they've never really, thankfully, never really gone through extremely difficult things. But this can also be a detriment to their growth too because they never experienced a lot of really harsh things. But yeah, there's definitely a difference between people who are kind of like grew up in a bubble and they're it's less of a joy from the wisdom they gain from overcoming the tragedies, and it's more of a joy from just like, everything's good. Like nothing, like, like I have like, like the worst thing that happened to me was I lost my job or something like that. And I got another one like 3 months later. So, and again, like I'm glad personally that they have not been through horrible suffering. Like I don't want people to go through horrible suffering. I'm just pointing out that there is a difference you can tell in someone who's kind of more like, thankfully that they've not been through hard things, but there's also a difference between someone who is joyful and peaceful, but you can tell that they've been through it and they understand what you're going through, and they're not like demeaning it, or it's not like they don't understand, or they push you away. I think the big difference is that when you're going through a difficult situation, a joyful person who's like more like positive, who's been through difficult things, they want to help because they've been through what you've been through. But someone who's been through like not really too much and they've been kind of in a bubble, thankfully, when you go through a difficult thing, they kind of want to like avoid you or like stay away from you because they don't know how to process those negative emotions. They don't know how to like talk to someone who's going through those negative emotions because they never really experienced that in their sphere. So that's really like another telling thing. And I think that's something that people in those bubbles should try to work on, to have a little bit more empathy as well. I think that's really important. But nonetheless, like that's kind of the situation, it's like complicated like that. But yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. it's already been like an hour, 2 hours and a half. So, but yeah, I think I've just been thinking about all this stuff and like, how do I want to move forward? And like for a minute there in the card shop, I thought about that old thing. I thought like maybe I should be a more serious person. Like maybe I should come to the shop in like, muted clothes and like be more like, toned down emotionally. Maybe I should, right? But at the end of that, and I'm praying to Kami-sama, like, it's better just to be yourself, like, this is who I am now. This is who I want to become. There's a person I want to become, and I'm going to work towards that. Even though I have my situation, like, I can't always be the ideal I want to be, but I want to try, and I want to grow, and I want to be this, and this is who I am now in the midst of this. So, from Kami-sama, just like, just be yourself and just go through life and try to work on yourself and see where it takes you. And don't try to be like, it's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, like being yourself with like reflection and like being yourself, but reflecting on yourself and growing yourself. And, it's like a process. So yeah, Alex says serious is overrated. Yeah, I agree. Like at one point I thought it was like cool, but if you're serious all the time, even when things are happy, and it's like, again, like for example, like of course you have to be serious and mature in like a ceremony or like a funeral or like, or like a serious discussion, like it's about politics or, about the government or, something like serious. You have, of course, like it's natural to be serious and not like hee like, like of course you have to, not you have to, but it's natural to take a more serious tone in serious situations, of course. But I was at a card shop in Tokyo, like we're playing a card game. I don't like, it's not a serious situation. Like realistically, it's not a serious situation. And, I went there to have fun. I didn't go there to have like a debate or like talk about deep things. Like I went there as my hobby to have fun. So of course I don't have a natural, sincere necessity to be a serious person in a card shop when we're all playing a card game. You know, so that's like the difference too, right? Like, or like, if things are going well, if like, you know, just you're out and about in this, and in public shopping, and things are okay. Like, there's no need to be mean to someone working at the shop, or like, or give like a scowl to people in the subway. Like, there's no reason for that. Like, you don't have to be like, yeah, so good in public, but like, I'm not going to be like, I'm going to be polite and I'm going to be nice to people because I think that's good to do. So, some people just like, they just like are even serious, and when it's like inappropriate to be serious too. Like, there's appropriate situations to be serious, and then there's appropriate situations to be like friendly and nice and casual. So, that's what I mean about the balance, right? Like, it's not always like happy go lucky cupcakes, rainbows, but also you don't have to be like serious, like dark, like closed off all the time either. Like, you have to have the balance between multiple facets of a person. Like, we're multifaceted, so we should embrace that. We don't have to fit into like one single archetype. We are like multiple archetypes all at once. So, or like multiple like faces all at once. It's kind of hard to explain, but kind of like that. Oh, sorry. Alex says, I used to be so serious about things, but honestly, being more authentic to yourself on a day-to-day basis is more important. I agree. That's kind of where I'm at now. Like, I also used to think like, being more serious was better, but being yourself is really important. And just to close off for today, like, of course, like in Shinto as a whole, like, being cheerful and positive is like purification. Like, it is oharai to be cheerful, positive, upright person. And the reason I say this is because, like, if you think about it, like, we go all the way back to the Amano Iwato myth, where the cave myth, where like everyone was like really like when Amaterasu Omikami-sama hid in the cave, and it was like dire, like things were dying in the world. There was no sunlight, nothing could grow, people were dying. And of course, you're going to be serious and solemn. It's a bad situation. The world is ending because there's no sun. Um, Not only that, but like Amaterasu Omikami-sama is not coming out. She's like the leader, and it's like there's so many things going wrong, right? And naturally, all the other kami-sama were like feeling horrible. They were like, "What do? We have to make a plan." They're serious. They're solemn. They're worried, they're anxious, they're all these negative feelings. It's all the kegare. But then comes Ameno Uzume no Mikoto-sama, and she turns over a wash tub. She gets naked and she starts dancing and like being cheerful, and it's so like absurd, like just the contrast between like the serious dire situation and her like suddenly doing this, that they all start laughing because they're like, what is going on? And Amino is like, Nomikoto-san was like playing it up. She's like, yes, like let's party, let's enjoy, let's have a good time. And everyone's like laughing because it's like so absurd. It's so crazy. It's like crazy almost in a way. Because if we were in their situation, I think if I saw someone do that, I would start laughing because I'd be like, what is going on? But it's because of that, everyone's laughing and there's like a commotion. That Amaterasu Mikami-san was like, why are they laughing? Like, hello? Like, no, she didn't say that, but she was confused. She was like, why is everyone laughing? What's happening? And that's when she finally peeks out of the cave and she goes, what are you all doing? Like, why is everyone laughing? Like, I'm grieving. I'm like going through these hard things, and why are you all happy? And Amano Uzume no Koto-sama says something clever. She says, "Oh, there's a new sun goddess, and she's so much better than you." And she didn't say that, but she's like, she's so cheerful, and she's so beautiful, and she's so lovely, and we're all having such a great time with her. And we're so celebrating because there's a new sun goddess. And Amaterasu Mikami-sama is so shocked that she like opens the Amenorato cave more. But then that's when Ameno Tajikaru no Mikoto-sama, he pulls her out of this cave, and then that's when she sees herself in the mirror. And at first, Amaterasu Mikami-sama thinks the new sun goddess is who she's seeing in the mirror. She's like, oh my gosh, after all, like this person is like so much better than me, and like this Kami-sama is so much better than me, and she's so radiant and beautiful and etc. But then, like, everyone starts laughing more because she didn't realize it's herself, and she didn't realize how important she was, or like why they all wanted her to come out so much. She didn't see like the value in herself, but that's why the mirror showed it. And Ameno Uzume no Mikoto-sama like showed it. The only way they could get to that point was to kind of like just break the cycle of the despair and the seriousness, and just kind of just be cheerful, be a little bit crazy, be a little bit wild, change things up and, work towards overcoming this tragedy, these tragic feelings, overcoming the tragedy and the feelings associated with it and the negativity through like laughter, through cheerfulness, through changing things up. Like there has to be change. And then it leads to a domino effect of more positivity coming from the initial, like, you have to make a change to get out of the negative mindset that you have to kind of like look towards things to be cheerful for, things to be grateful for. So, like, even in that story, it's kind of showing that, yeah, it's natural to be sad and serious when there's a problem and a situation, but you can't let that go on for a long time, or else everything will die and everything will go even worse. And metaphorically, that also means like if we let the negative emotions like drown us and overtake us, nothing will change. We'll be stuck in this cycle forever. So you have to kind of make the first step. And Amino Uzume no Mikoto-sama's first step was pretty dramatic and like striking. And it doesn't always have to be that for us as people, but the meaning is to make that change, like to make that sudden different perspective, to tell yourself that you have to overcome this. So that's kind of the meaning. And then from that change, that first step, it can lead to more positive things, like Amaterasu Mikami-sama seeing her self-worth in the mirror. She didn't see it before, but because of all the change, she saw it. It's kind of like a metaphor for like, if you're feeling like you're not good enough or things aren't going well, but you make the change and you start to see like, no, like, there is parts of yourself to appreciate and to respect, like to look at the positive sides of yourself and to uplift them and not only see the negative sides of yourself. We acknowledge the negative sides and we work on them and being grateful for our positive sides and the sides that we can like about ourselves. And we can only get to that point really if we kind of get out of that situation, So I hope that made sense. But yes, I really like that story for that reason. And, why the Shinto practices and rituals, they focus on returning ourselves to that connection to Kami-sama, to that make that change out of the kegare accumulating, the negative energy accumulating on top of us. We have to kind of like keep moving forward and like make that change to work on it. So yes, I hope that made sense. But yes, and thank you so much, Alex, for coming. And it's my pleasure. And yeah, I think it's just something important to talk about, especially what I was going through the last few days and like thinking about all this stuff. And I wanted to share it with everyone. So I hope we could help and maybe offer some perspectives to think on. So yeah, but thank you so much. Okay, so it's thank you so much, Raisa. Yes, thank you, Alex, thank you, Raisa. So yeah, so now it's 2:30. So I will close the stream for now, but I'll see you guys next time on Tuesday. And I hope you have a lovely weekend and a nice day or evening, depending on where you are. So thank you so much. And bye for now. Thank you. Thank you, Video-san. Thank you, Alex-san. Thank you, Ray-san. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.